How come the past came after the future? We've already heard about the future. Is it too late to hear about the past? No? Well, it's kind of a brave thing, Pastor, for you to ask an old person to talk about the past, because they usually talk about two things, the past or their ailments. And I will not be talking about my ailments. But I'm not too sure about the 7 minutes he gave me. 7 minutes? Going to talk about 110 years in 7 minutes? Every time I saw him after he asked me, I told him, no, that won't be happening. So my one disclaimer is that I'm mentioning several lists of people, and I'm sure they're not definitive lists. They're just part of a group of a bigger group. We revere the past because it gifted us with the present. And how can we appreciate the present without the past? We are all part of somebody's past. And the past has made us who we are. And we need to be honoring that. And that's what I'm going to try to do today. This church was established in the middle of World War I. That's a long time ago. The seminary wasn't very old at that time, and the country's economy was pitifully poor. But the sainted professors and their wives were determined to fill the need for a church on the hill for students and faculty in a time when transportation was very limited, making attending a church far away as maybe 10 miles or more. Some of you travel twice that to come to this church, and we are blessed by that. So the church began in humble circumstances. Money was more than scarce, and within the next decade, the country began the downhill plunge into the Great Depression. Any plans to build buildings for the church were impossible for many years, until the auditorium that we worship in was built in 1948-49. And the educational building, Thornton Hall, was added in 1955. So here we are today, 110 years later, in facilities that no one 110 years ago could have dreamed that were possible. So what was it like when I joined in 1953? We had a fairly new auditorium. Guess what? No air conditioning. One hurried to the auditorium after Sunday school from what we call the shack, which was the old Sunday school building that was torn down when this building was built. It had overhead large fans, but we were hurried to the auditorium so we could get a pew by a window. The windows in our church were open then, and we had a cross breeze, and it was nice if you were sitting by the window. So everybody hurried to do that. The shack also contained the only kitchen that we had, and all of our get-togethers, potluck dinners, banquets for youth were held in that old shack. Dr. Arthur Travis was pastor, and his wife was our unpaid children's minister. And the children's departments met in the house that was on the east lawn from the auditorium. And that was, I don't know that it was the original pastorate, but it was the pastorate at one time and had been turned into the children's department when the church bought a larger house for the Travises down on Gambrell Street. It was demolished, as I said, when that home was purchased. Dr. Elder was the first pastor to own his home. That change caused the most contentious business meeting that I was ever in as secretary of this church. Older people resist change, but he won, and he got his own home. The congregants lived basically in the Greenbrier addition, north and south of what is now I-20, and the neighborhood west of between Gambrell and Seminary Drive, and then from the Federal Record Center over to Gambrell. We were a community church, and that's where most everybody lived until Wedgwood. And then they all upgraded. The, the people are the church. Elias reminded us of that when he posted the picture on Facebook of that one we had made recently. And I named some who grew up in Gambrell during these past 110 years. From the early days, who grew Gambrell, from the early days to the present, Southwestern faculty and staff have worshiped here. Giants of the faith were T.B. Maston, W.R. Estep, Lyle Scudder, J.W. McGorman, J.M. Price, Jack Gray, Felix Gresham, to name only a few. Faithful community families who were the backbone of the church, some of whose family members worship with us today. And as I call your family's name, I would like for you to stand so we can see who you are. The Esteps, I don't know if they're still here, but they were in the worship service. Rhoda and Mary. Rhoda just joined last Sunday, I think. And Mary is Barry Morgan's wife. The Kilgores, they had 2 daughters and a son, and there's Lisa. Lynette, I'm sorry. Lisa couldn't be here. The Thompsons, Mike Thompson, is he here? Mike and Cindy. And the McPeaks, Cindy Cox was their daughter. And all of the Frasers, wherever they are still members here. The Bentleys, their daughter Linda Haggard. The Wardlaws, Marcy's a member, and Myra has come to be with us today with her husband. The Charleses, Cindy Thompson. Mike, did you bring Cindy? There she is. And all the Johnsons, Howard and Elaine and their family, all of their families, still members. And the Webbs, I don't think Mike and Kim are here, but his family grew up here. The Doties were his grandparents, and many others that I could name, but I'm glad all of y'all showed up. Dr. Elder became pastor in 1969, and the membership had grown exponentially. And midway of his time with us, we entered into an auditorium renovation, which added the current balcony. The evening worship service met at 7:30, late, and many families gathered in homes afterwards for refreshments and fellowship. WMU, remember that? Women's Missionary Union, had 6 to 8 circles that met in homes. Bible school was a full week during the day, most of the day. Revivals, remember those? We had those twice a year at least, sometimes more than twice a year, and usually for a week. And I remember we had one that was for 10 evenings, but everybody came. And church training Bible study courses happened all through the year. On a personal note, which you're never supposed to do at a speech, I'm told, but I'm doing it anyway, I was part-time church secretary in the early 1960s, and I served with Hazel Smart, who was our longtime financial secretary, and whom some of you might remember, and with part-timers Willadine McPeak and Hazel Cleveland. I was full-time secretary from 1973 to 78. I served then with part-timer Elaine Johnson. Where are you, Elaine? Remember that? And at that time, this is what this ministry as secretary was like. I had an electric typewriter when I was full-time, but the messenger was mailed to everybody once a week. It wasn't as the large, lovely size of the messenger we have now, but it was more complicated to put out. With this electric typewriter, I had to type everything once and then count all the spaces and retype it to justify the columns. And then on Thursday, I would take that mock-up to the print shop at the seminary, and they would print it for us, and I would pick it up on Friday. And then I would hand feed into the folding machine in the church office to fold them all. And they were folded once, and then they were folded twice. And then I would load them into the machine that would put the label on them to mail them. Now, those labels were metal, and you had to type one in a different machine every time somebody joined the church. When Elaine stepped up to be full-time secretary, I sure hope her tasks were vastly improved. During the 1970s and 80s, several seminary families joined Gambrell, whose daughters married in the church and remain to this day. And I think two of them are here. I don't think I saw Kim Webb. It's in here. Her maiden name was Johnson, and she married Mike Webb. And Jennifer Pointer Johnson married. Where are you, Jennifer? Norma. Over there, okay. And Mary Diddy Frazier. I saw her earlier. Is she still here? Very good. And Jennifer's mom was our church secretary for part of that time. Well, during the part of these decades, Dr. Joel Gregory became our pastor, and this hall was constructed with a great indebtedness, an enormous indebtedness. At that time, interest rates were out the window. Some years later, the church refinanced that loan, and it was paid off in 1999 very sacrificially. In 1990, the church had extensive local mission activity, of which you heard others have built on. And my memories since 1953 until about the 1990s, that the growth in our membership in missions was accomplished with only a full-time pastor, a full-time minister of education under very few of our pastors. Only twice that I remember we had a full-time minister of music. Always, all the years up until recently, we had one full-time custodian, and in my day, it was dear old Mr. Hook, who was ancient, and he got around like the Energizer Bunny. In fact, he went on vacation one week, and Hazel Smart and I had to be the janitors, and we couldn't get it all done at all. We told him we missed him when he came back. All part-timers filled all the other staff positions. So this church has had an enormous growth, really, up and down the ladder with part-time staff people, which I think is pretty phenomenal. Since the 1990s, we have been blessed with the pastorates of our emeritus pastor, Dr. Clyde, and ye old Dr. Spivey, wherever you are. I believe the years ahead we will see God's richest blessings. Well, it was a fast trip through 110 years. I feel like I lived every one of them. My final observation, Gambrell Street has always had a friendly, welcoming spirit to people. Don't you agree? Yeah. Always, ever since I've been here. As congregants have come and gone through the years, that wonderful spirit of welcome has continued to prevail. It's a God thing. May God preserve our heritage to continue ministry in the world many more years. Thank you.